And so this is the part 2 of our chapter 2 presentation, Thinking Like an Economist, the second of 3. And we're going to begin with the section that is still part 1 on your textbook on economic models. As your textbook said in the reading beforehand, that economists use model to simplify reality in order to improve our understanding of the world. Now, take a look at what's up here. This is, well, I would say an unrealistic roadmap. What I mean by unrealistic is it doesn't show where the stop signs are. We don't see the gas stations or most of the restaurants. Some of them we see, but not all of them are here, are located. The model here, or the map, assumes that the Earth is flat and two-dimensional. It has limited use. It can get us from one place to another. There's my house. There's the school. There's a few places to eat and so forth, but other than that, it's, well, not that good a model. But if we look instead at a more realistic model, for example, this satellite view of the exact same area, well, although it is more realistic, although it is definitely much more detailed, we can see every individual house. If you squint, you might even think you see people. You can see cars in the parking lot of Whitney's High School, which is set in the middle if you can see it. I can see my house, but the knowledge is completely useless. I can't get from point A to point B. Nothing is labeled. Where are even the small numbers of restaurants? I mean, what on earth are those gray buildings? I mean, that's kind of weird. So, despite the simplifications that we have, let's say on a map, we have enough information, it's simplified enough so that we can see where we're going. It helps us travelers get from one place to another. Thus, in the context of, well, getting from one place to another, like a GPS, it's a good model. And most economic models are like this: a simplification of the world, a bringing down of a multitude of variants, which is symbolized by that crisscrossing of stuff, and it brings it down to a level that anyone could understand. Most economic models are comprised of diagrams and equations. And by simplifying reality, it helps to increase our understanding. And this is where the use of assumptions is also very, very helpful, because models assume certain things. That map that you saw assumed that to get from point A to point B, you don't need to know where the traffic lights are or what the colors of those traffic lights are at the moment. You don't need to know where the cars are parked. You don't need to know who lives in what home or what their backyard is like. Again, it assumes certain things and it goes from there. So here in this chapter, we're going to be dealing with two basic economics. One of them that we'll just need you to kind of know. The other one is something that you're going to be using in different forms over and over and over again. So let me introduce you to the circular flow diagram and also to the production possibilities frontier. I don't know about you, but I bet you're excited. All right, you're not excited. So let me begin then with the circular flow diagram. And the circular flow diagram is a visual model of the economy that shows how dollars flow through the market among households and firms. And there are many different renderings of this model. This one is a relatively simple version of the circular flow diagram, and it's pretty good. Here's another one, a little more complicated with some cute little pictures on it and so forth. That works. This is, well, it looks a little more complicated than the others, but it has the same basic information that we wanted to look at. This has complicated some of it, simplified other bits of it, but nevertheless it's still a circular flow. And this one was the most, well, the most detailed circular flow model or diagram that I could find. Again, you can take all sorts of different elements from within the circular flow diagram, but it remains, in essence, the same. This is a copy of the model that is in your textbook. I took out all the words and everything else so that you can have a much better idea. However, to appreciate this, we need to define two items. And one of those items is called households, and the other is firms. And you might have seen them in the other diagrams. And if you have your textbook open, you can even see them yourselves. So in our case here, for the model that we're going to be using, think of a household as all those people living under one roof. You and your parents and everyone else in your home is a household. My family is a household, and so on and so on and so forth. Now, it doesn't literally have to be a house where people live. Of course, it could be apartments, it could be hotels, it could be whatever it is. But the assumption, the basic unit, one could say, within this circular flow diagram is the unit, not the individual, but the unit called a household, because it assumes they live together, work together, spend together, and so forth. The second term was firms. And firms are the sellers in the markets for goods and services and the buyers in the market for what are called the factors of production. For example, the Best Buy in Town Center here in Cerritos, it sells you goods such as computers and televisions, as well as services such as computer repairs. They are part of the market. You remember in chapter 1 I spoke to you about markets being not just brick and mortar buildings, but the whole of the choices that one can go to in order to buy stuff. So the market for large screen televisions includes Best Buy, Walmart, Target, but it also includes places that do not exist as a brick and mortar store, or at least until recently, like Amazon.com, or going to the firms where they make it together. These markets, like let's say Best Buy, also buy things from manufacturers to sell. So you're in the Best Buy, that's the market for consumer electronics, and they buy large screen televisions, phones, video games, DVDs, and so on and so on and so forth from other firms who make them, and those firms are the factors of production. All right. Now, many of these finished goods probably aren't even local. Many of them may come from other parts of the world. All right, so it's back to the diagram that we're going to be using, which is on page 23 or 24 of your textbook. And this is a very simple model of the economy. It's not meant to be comprehensive, of course. If you wanted a real model of the economy, it would be much more complicated than that original picture of all the squiggly lines and so forth. This model, for example, ignores the roles of government. It ignores international trade. But it starts with the idea that in a model economy that there are two decision makers. And the decision makers are households and firms. Let's get some of this up for you. So as you can see here, well, let's start from here. The households, again, you're a household, are the folks who buy and consume goods and services. It could be anything from televisions to cars to haircuts to food to tennis shoes or whatever it is. A household also owns and sells factors of production. Well, what does that mean in terms of a household? We all are really able to sell our factor of production. Those are the skills, the talents, what training you might have that you offer to the marketplace, and which, through, let's say, them hiring you for a job, you then become part of a firm. For example, in my case, my education, my training, and so forth is kind of like my factor of production. What I produce, I hope I produce, are educated young men and women. I also produce educational products like this slide, this PowerPoint that you can see. I produce reports to the vice principal, I input into meetings and so forth. That's my factor of production. If you become a physicist and get a job at for the defense, as a defense contractor, you are selling your factor of production. Even if you sell your skills at washing dishes as a dishwasher at a nearby restaurant, that's your factor of production. Now take a look. You have framing the model, a green line and a red line. And you can see from the key at the bottom that you have a flow of dollars. This is the money that you are spending to do whatever you need to do. And at the same thing, you also have a flow of inputs and outputs. What that means is what you might be selling as a factor of your production. So let's take a case for someone who, again, is looking for a television set. You are looking for that television set. Follow the green line up from households. It goes to the markets for goods and services. Again, this is a concept. This is an idea. So you want to buy that screen TV, you can go to all the different markets out there. Make your choice from them. So firms sell flat screen TVs or whatever is consumer electronics, food, whatever market you're going to. And you as a household, you buy. So in exchange for the dollars that you give to, let's say, Best Buy to buy that television, you, in exchange for those dollars, get the goods and services that you bought. So you get to take home that television set. Maybe you even had a plan to get it fixed if something goes wrong with it. Goods and services. Now let's go to the opposite side. Markets for the factors of production. This is where you share your skills, your labor, in order to receive money or a salary. So, for example, you decide you want to get a job before college. You apply to the nearby H Mart and, hey, you get the interview, you get the job. You then, in the market for the factors for production, in this case, let's say bakery goods, which you can find in H Mart, right? You go and you exchange your labor in exchange for, and look at the green line, the flow of dollars that you would get as pay at the end of a week or 2 weeks. Now notice that the factors of production include other things besides your labor. Land could be considered part of this. For example, you might use your land for certain things like rent it out. And capital. Capital can be money that you invest, or maybe stocks and bonds and so forth that you put in. You put it in, and with luck you get something out of it. The factors of production, that which you produce, goes to the firms that produce and sell the goods and services. They hire the use of production. So you go to the market for jobs, and you end up in the firm. In this case, let's say that H Mart. Again, by going to the marketplace, you then facilitate the movement of the goods and the services. The firms then produce what they want. Let's say you get a job making television sets. You went to the market for making television sets, and you went to the firm that hired you, and then that talent, that labor that you put in, is turned into a good and services. And as you can see, in all cases, money flows in and out. We can see here also different parts being put in: revenue up on the top, wages, rent, and profits, and so on and so forth. All right. This is not meant to be a comprehensive look at how this model works. In order to get a much clearer idea and a much more solid idea, you must read. Actually, you must study the few paragraphs in it that describe it. If it still doesn't work out, I encourage you, go to online and read in more detail about this if it eludes you, and then we can go and try to talk all about it. Let us move on then to our next thing. This is something that this model is something you're going to be using quite a bit in many different variations, and this is the production possibility frontiers. This is a simple graph that shows the combinations of output that the economy can possibly produce, given the given the available factors of production and the available production technology. This probably means absolutely nothing to you. This is best described simply by showing you how it works. This is going to be very, very familiar because all of you have taken algebra and geometry and all of that insane stuff. Okay, there's the definition that you had. So it's a graph that you are very familiar with, and it uses very, very simple math. In fact, if I can understand the math, anyone can. So how does it work? So let's take a look at an example. Let us pretend that we have an economy that only produces two things. See, we're simplifying reality. We're bringing it down to an economy that produces only two things. And it only produces cars and computers. So we can see here this graph being presented. And you can see the X and the Y axis, I hope that's the right word, the quantity of computers produced and the quantity of cars produced on our model. You can see over at the axis there, it is down at 0. In our little economy, if you put all of your resources for, let's say, producing cars, you can produce 1,000. That is, in your economy, every bit of labor, every bit of resources that you have, everything is for cars. You can produce 1,000 of them. However, you cannot produce a single computer. Conversely, in this simple economy, if you decide to put all of your resources, labor, iron, and whatever it comes to take of it, you can make 3,000 computers, but not a single car, 0 cars. So you can already see here from the model, the line, which is curved, that we can predict how many cars or how many computers we could make, and conversely, how many computers we can produce, depending upon, well, how much we decide to make. The line itself is called the production possibility frontier. So, for example, if we decide, for whatever reason, to produce 2,200 computers, that means, as you can see here on point A, that the number of cars we can produce are 600. And there's no way around that. If we decide instead to produce 2,000 computers, point B, well then, we can only produce 700 cars. Now take a look here. If we make the decision to produce 1,000 computers, which we put at point D, then in our case we are underproducing, and thus only 300. You do not want to be an economy that is underproducing. Now, you say, wait a minute, if they're making 1,000 computers, can't they go all the way up here and produce many, many more? But there may be factors that are limiting them to 1,000 computers. For example, there may be a labor shortage. There may be a lack of natural supplies, and so on and so forth. So if the maximum they're able to do is 1,000 computers based on what they have, then it's only 300 cars. It is underproducing. This is when we speak about an economic depression. We have the means to produce everything if we had everything that we need to produce. But because we don't have enough laborers, we don't have enough capital, we don't have enough natural resources, we are underproducing, and we can't do it all for everybody else. All right. Again, you can go just about anywhere you want on the production possibility of frontiers if you have the full resources, workers, natural resources, anywhere where you want to go. In production, if you are producing goodies, the place where you very most want to be is near the center with A and B. The line is curved, and we'll talk about why the line is curved a little bit later instead of just straight. But the curved line is dealing with a factor that's not here. But you are considered to be producing more effectively, and that's why it's there. It has to do with labor. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit later. If you're on F or E or anywhere else, you lose productivity, and that's the whole point of what we're trying to do. Now take a look outside of C. C is outside the production possibility frontier. This might be a goal for you and your economy, but based upon the information given, your labor and your resources, it is impossible to get up there. You would need to somehow expand your production possibility frontier, kind of like a wave, so that it would get to C. And really, the only way that you can do this is to increase the number of workers that you have, to increase the technology that you have, through science, technology, and so forth, or get more natural resources. When any company attempts to project into the future, they do make the assumptions that they might have more workers, or they may need more workers, more natural resources, new technologies, and so forth. And that helps makes everyone richer, because then they can make more of whatever it is they may have. So I'm going to ask you to give it a try for yourself. On your notes, I think, just create an X and Y axis for your own production possibility frontiers. And let me give you the information. Let me give you the data. Let's take a small country. Let's call it Rosenbergia. And that country produces two goods. One is corn, measured in bushels. So how much corn is in a bushel, I have no idea. And you can create trucks. So on your note sheet, make a production possibilities frontier based on the following data that I'm sharing with you now. We have here 5 different points: A, B, C, D, and E. We can see here corn, or trucks and corns there. Put trucks, I think, on the y-axis. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know. The y-axis is the one that goes up and down, right? Yes? Y-axis? Yes, I'm correct. And put on the x-axis the corn. We can see here that your truck axis will go up to a maximum of 40, while the corn will go to a maximum of 70. So we can see, if you put all of your energy to making bushels of corn, you don't have enough to make trucks. So what I would like you to do then is to, when you're done, is to calculate the opportunity cost of increasing the number of trucks produced by 10. In other words, and this is what you can discern from your graph, in other words, how many bushels of corn must we give up in order to make between 0 and 10 cars, 10, let's say 20 cars, 30 cars, trucks, 40 cars, and so forth. You get what I'm saying? So give that a few minutes, give it a try, see if you get it. Now, normally, we would have a brave soul come up on top to the board to share his or her productivity possibilities frontier, but we can't do that virtually. We don't have the resources for that. I don't have time to go through all of yours, but if you'd like me to look at it, just take a JPEG of what you did and send it to me by my regular email, and I'll be more than happy to check it out, because I don't think I put it up. Oh, yes. I guess I did. I forgot my own work. So here we have that. Let me see if I put this in a... No, I did not. All right, I'm sorry. So send it to me, and I will discern it if you like to see that you're going on the right track. Give this one a try as well. Again, this is just on your own, and send it to me if you can't do it. Oh, you're going to be very friendly with Fred during the semester. So Fred receives an allowance from his parents of $10 a week. He spends his entire allowance on 2 goods: ice cream cones, which cost $1 each, and tickets to the movies, which cost $5 each. What I'd like you to do is to calculate the opportunity cost of 1 movie and the opportunity cost of 1 ice cream cone. As you do this, draw Fred's consumption possibility frontiers, and what should the slope be like and why. What I just thought of as I was doing this is that I can put on the Rosenworld website, when I put this video up, I can put for you the finished production possibility frontiers of this example and the one that was just done before, rather than you send it to me, and that way we can see how it works. Okay? Again, I'm really sorry that we can't do it this way. So let me repeat this one more time that you can do on your own. That Fred receives an allowance from his parents of $10 each week. He spends his entire allowance on two goods: ice cream cones, which cost $1 each, and tickets to the movies, which cost $5 each. Calculate the opportunity cost of one movie and the opportunity cost of one ice cream cone, and then draw Fred's consumption possibility frontier. What should the slope be like, and why? Here's one more thing to add to it. What would happen to the consumption possibilities frontier if Fred's allowance changes, or if the price of ice cream cones or the movies change? And hopefully, if you've been paying good attention to what I've been sharing with you, you should be able to figure out, oh, this happens to it, and so forth. If you don't quite catch it, well, you might catch it when you're doing the problem. Even if you don't then and do the reading, maybe it'll come to you. If not, talk to me. I do have the support block this afternoon at 2 o'clock, and you can come right down. But make sure you have a friend with you. All right, we're going to shift gears from our models and quickly go through the two main categories that are the foundation of economics: microeconomics and macroeconomics. Let's get to it. Microeconomics, well, this is the study of how households and firms make decisions and how they interact in markets. When you are shopping, either in a brick and mortar store or online, you are in essence practicing microeconomics. If you own a business or work in a business, that firm is part of the microeconomic story. This class is not going to be that concerned with microeconomics. We're really not going to go deep into it, simply because most of you probably will not end up owning your own businesses in the next couple of years. We need to give you that bigger sense of the economy, which is what we have with macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is the study of economy-wide phenomena, including inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. Macroeconomics is the big picture. It springs from microeconomics. In the case of this class, this is what our main focus is going to be. And this is the focus that many of you probably understand economics to be about. When you look at a financial page in the newspaper, and the major headlines having to do with economics, most of it has to do with the macroeconomic story, the tax breaks, the changes in salaries of certain professions, who's up, who's down, stock prices, the discount rate, and other things that you may not quite know about. As I hinted at before, both of these disciplines are closely intertwined because changes in the overall economy arise from the decisions of individual households and firms. The assumption in economics is that we are the decision makers. We decide what type of cars to buy, whether it be gas guzzlers or electric cars. We decide what the food trends will be. Whether or not we're going to eat a lot of junk food, or whether or not we're going to have organic foods, and so forth. Of course, firms attempt to influence your decision through advertising. Of course, I mean, who 30 years ago wanted to buy a pet rock? Well, nobody, until they started advertising it, and then suddenly it was something everyone wanted. Right, that puts us to an end of this part of the presentation. We'll finish it up when we see each other Monday. And for next time, then, you'll have quiz number 2, which, I don't think I changed the pages to reflect the 8th edition, but it would be to the end of the first part. So you'll be quizzed on economic models, the circular flow diagram, the production possibility frontiers, and macro and micro economics. And that puts an end to the presentation.